and Discussions of Truth is Ian Hamilton Trottier. We will be joined shortly, waiting for Willie Montague. He's running for a Senate seat in Florida. He'll be joining us this afternoon, and I just finished with George Webb, investigative journalist George Webb. Not only George Webb, but we had special guests from Peru, Michael Swinwood. And Michael Swinwood and a team of Canadian lawyers is suing the World Health Organization. Okay, it's a big organization. That's a large suit. Why would he be taking on such a massive organization? Because it's tied right into the Bank of International Settlements, and it ties right into central banking mechanism globally, such as the US Federal Reserve. Now, the United States Federal Reserve takes away the power to coin money per Article 1, Section 8, I believe it is, of the US Constitution. Takes that power away from Congress. Therefore, the Federal Reserve is unconstitutional. That is the argument that many folks have been making for decades, and that includes Ron Paul. So it's coming to heads now. It's coming to a blow, if you will, now, because just looking here, we're waiting for Willie, and something's going on with my screen, whereas the visibility is low. So I just want to make sure that I see him when he comes in. But and this is a Zoom, and I've got this recording, of course, on Anchor.fm. All of my shows are available on Anchor.fm. Maybe some of the early ones are not, but most of them are not. I used SoundCloud for a while, and then SoundCloud started taking some of my shows off. So I went to Anchor.fm because it was a more free platform. That includes StopCommunism.net, that was deplatformed by the host Yola.com out of San Francisco, and I'm using a different host now. It was using StopCommunism.uk, same information for quite a while, and I don't know that StopCommunism.net is even live at the moment, but it has been transferred to now. So Willie Montague joining us here shortly. Suing again. I'm sorry, the visibility is low on this computer for some reason, so I'm waiting for Willie to join. But Michael Swinwood suing the World Health Organization because it is tied into this global central banking mechanism. Really, it's a Ponzi scheme, isn't it? And it contradicts, for instance, how the United States, anyway, is and should be set up economically. And I've already mentioned the constitutional article, which gives power to Congress to coin money. The economic system in the United States is a fiat system. There is no intrinsic value to the currency. There's no gold or silver that backs Federal Reserve notes. This is the reality for Americans, and it's time for Americans to wake up to this. So anyway, we're going to admit Dr. Willie J Montague to the room. It's a Zoom call, and Willie, can you hear me? Willie, can you hear me? Can you see me? How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear you. Okay, so look, it sounds like you cannot hear me. Let's see, I can hear you. And, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay. Let's see, there's something on my end. I can hear you. I can hear you, and I'm going to send you a text. Huh?
Over here.
Okay, I'm sending you a text. I can hear you. Again, we have.
I don't know why.
Okay. So I just sent you a text. I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me?
I can hear you.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me. Okay.
No.
All right. Let me see if it's something on
mine.
Let's see. Okay, so Dr. Montague can't hear me. I can hear him. Let's see. Built-in microphone, built-in output, test, same as system, audio settings. Okay, let's see.
Sorry.
Okay, that worked. All right, and okay, so my speaker is working.
All right, and okay.
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Willie? You still can't hear me. Okay. I can hear you. Test your audio. Okay, my audio is working fine. And we can always do this. We can always do this on a phone, on a call. You can't hear me? Okay. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can dial him in on Skype. And you know what? We'll try something interesting here. So.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Okay. All right. So let me see if I can dial you in on Skype. Okay. Let's see if this works here. This will be interesting. Give me a moment. Okay.
Okay. Good.
You can hear me now?
There we go.
You can hear me now?
Yes. Good.
Fantastic. Willie,
Yes.
great to have you on the show. Welcome to Discuss Your Truth. I just want to reconfirm, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So Willie, tell listeners a little bit about yourself. You're running for a Senate seat in Florida. What seat is
Congress.
that? What is it?
Congress.
Oh, congressional. Okay, congressional seat. You're running for a congressional seat. Tell us about that, and tell us what where you're at, where you're currently at. So a little introduction, if you would, for listeners.
Yeah, sure. So I'm running for Congress in District 10, which is predominantly the Orange County area for those that are aware of, or Orlando, that'll help you kind of make the area. So pretty much I'm running against Val Demings. For those that know, she was an impeachment manager. I also was on the BP shortlist. And so my initiative is really, I believe that all politics is local. So my initiative is to really make sure that we have a strong base in the House in 2022. So I stepped back into races going into the second cycle for myself and wanting to make sure that we restore the constitutional values to our country and also biblical values.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay, that's heavy. So you're talking about a federal. You're running not for a state. You're running for the US Congress, and that's great. And you are at a convention right now?
Yes, I'm actually in a training here in Vegas for candidates to help kind of steer us forward, make sure that we have the momentum behind us to make a difference.
Now, for listeners who are familiar with my program, Joe Collins is he a mutual friend of yours?
Yes.
Okay, he's a friend of mine. He's trying to unseat Maxine Waters in Southern California, and I push him and promote him because look, I mean, Maxine Waters has been in office for like 4 decades, isn't that right, Willie?
Yeah, she's been there quite a long time, and it's just basically it's time for some new faces and people that actually understand the demographics of their district versus someone who lives in a mansion and is out of touch with reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like term limits, right? What do you think of term limits? What's your thought on that?
I was having this discussion earlier. I actually believe in term limits. I necessarily don't agree with. I believe that every person that is running for office need to set their own individual limits. Me personally, I believe that my term limit would be going alongside of the president, which would be that those 8 years versus shortening it at 6. So we're making sure that those things that are accomplished are getting done in that same cycle as that president.
Okay, that makes sense. And your doctor, Willie Montague, J Montague. What is your doctorate in?
As a PhD in religious studies.
Fantastic. So I'm going to tell you something. So I was recently in Tulsa, and I got to share a moment with General Flynn, and I said, General, what's the best foot forward in America? And he says, focusing on the family. The family is being dismembered, and it's the greatest. It's the greatest threat to the country moving forward. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I speak often about the destruction of the nuclear family. And so family is very important because family is seen in all aspects of everything that we do, whether it's politics, whether it's ministry, whether it's in schools. Our family is, and I believe that a lot of the issues that we're seeing, especially in today's society with what we're seeing going around us, is because there is a lack of the family unit. And so I'm very big about making sure that we're restoring the nuclear family, restoring, once again, when people can say, this is where I can go to get my strength, my encouragement, my correction, so I can become a better person, whatever area that you're going in, whether it's politics or whether you're out there, wanting to start a business of some kind, family. I firmly believe it takes a village to raise a child, even no matter how old that child is.
Now let's get into some of the current issues that's really facing the country, and we're talking about constitutional values based off of. It's just the way it is, isn't it? They're based off of biblical values. That's what we've inherited. That's what has made this country great. It has made it prosperous. We've had great leaders that came before us and fought for our freedoms. I want to ask you that same question. What is the greatest threat right now outside of the family nucleus? What is the greatest threat that's tearing away this country? We're obviously in a tumultuous time period right now with the pandemic, with this global virus, with the issues of vaccine, with the issues of masks. I want you to run with that and give some thoughts there for listeners on how you view the current state of.
I believe that the greatest threat that we're facing right now is the threat that we're seeing that's coming down on the First Amendment. And I believe that when we're starting to attack, especially when it deals with our freedom to have a voice, if we do not have a voice, we do not have a backbone. That's what I believe. Because throughout the history of America going on 245 years, we have been able to really speak up when things are in error. That's what our founding fathers did. They spoke up, they looked in the eyes of evil and decided to create a union that would be able to make sure that the people was represented. So when you see that the people are no longer represented, and you have this government that wants to come in and control and become all-knowing, all-powerful, all-seeing, I believe that the voice is missing in America. And if we can restore the voice of the people back to the people, I believe that's when the restoration will start. So I believe we have to first, get God back into America and get back to the place where we're in prayer, we're in repentance, that we're moving forward in those, again, biblical values that our founding fathers set up, and then we can start getting that voice. But right now, that's, to me, is one of the greatest threats that I see, is that they're trying to muzzle us. And, I know we're in mass. To me, when I look at, I go through the airport quite often, and sometimes as I'm in the line waiting to, go check my bag, and I just sit back and I just have a moment to kind of zone out, and I look around and see everyone in a mask. What I see is muzzles. I see you can't see, the eyes, the face, the joy. It's like everyone is robotic. We have lost really that. And I believe that goes back again to our First Amendment rights. And I believe that's the threat that we're seeing. And it's starting off with the pandemic. COVID-19 is something that is used, but we're starting to see it way more. I'm getting emails from and messages from teachers who are saying the different things that are coming into the school systems, where the superintendents and their administrators and school districts are asking them, these are predominantly white teachers, saying now they have to feel like they're threatened because they have to say to the students, we are some kind of a harm to those who are minority students. And again, that goes back to the voice. And they feel like if they can't speak up, they're going to have retaliation. So all across the board, whether it's dealing with the race issue, whether it's dealing with the issue of COVID-19, whether it's dealing with the issues of the family, it all goes back again to the voice. And I believe that's the greatest threat to America right now. We're losing the voice of the people.
So insert the advancements in technology, of course, and information being passed at a rapid rate. We have recently experienced an American sitting in the Oval Office, 45th President of the United States, being banned from Twitter. Do you feel that is that is an infringement on his constitutional right, and how do we correct that and prevent that from happening to other leaders or other politicians, other Americans?
Absolutely, I definitely believe it was an infringement against his constitutional right. What I believe is, when there are representatives such as the president, members of Congress, the Senate, there are rules that they have where it comes down to they can't, delete posts, they can't block people because that becomes their First Amendment right to be able to voice their opinion. So when a seated president of the United States is voicing his opinion and coming from a stance of where he said, this is what I'm saying that represents, the United States of America, and where you can have such a company like Twitter decide what is and what is not what they want to show because of the cancel culture, that's an issue. But when you go back again to Representative Maxine Waters, who can go and say she wants to spark up and want people to go out there and be confrontational and incite violence, and that she's not censored of any kind, that is also an issue. So I believe that our media platforms have become biased, and they mostly are biased with those who are conservative voices. So I believe, again, that is an infringement on anyone's constitutional right when you're not able to freely express your opinions or anything that has to deal with your rights as an American citizen.
And so the Google whistleblower, if you're familiar with his name, Zach Voorhees, he worked at Google for, I believe, 7 or 8 years. And he worked on YouTube. He worked on Google Earth and some other areas in Google. He came across a program called Machine Learning Fairness, which he said objectively targeted conservative thinkers and was implemented to use against the success of Donald Trump. This is what he said. He submitted 900 plus pages to the DOJ. They didn't go anywhere with it. So then he turned it over to Project Veritas and James O'Keefe. But in your view, Dr. Montague, in your view, why is it that conservatives, if I understand what you're saying, why is it that conservatives are being targeted?
I believe it's really just because we see the movement of free thinkers versus those that are, what I'm getting ready to say, liberal-minded plantation setters. And what they're doing is they're not wanting to move off of the plantation, the Democratic plantation. And so because conservatives, to me, are actually real free thinkers, and we're able to actually say what we believe and what we stand for, and we really just don't, shoot in the wind. I believe that to others is a threat to them, to their egos, really, and then it's also just is emotionalism, and that's really what it is. And I believe that, when you go, because if I don't say what my party affiliation is and I don't say anything about conservatism, I just go up there and just say the outlandish things such as LeBron James can say and threaten a police officer and there's nothing, done. I think that shows you where we are, because he's been the most outspoken and have no correction with the woke but sleep culture. So, that's why I think they're targeting us. We're free thinkers and they don't like it.
So, you're talking about political parties, and there's a lot of kind of back and forth throughout the history of the United States, including Andrew Jackson, who was a Democrat, and he's, by the way, the only president out of the 46 that we've had that has left office without a federal debt. Abraham Lincoln being a Republican, and then JFK, right, being a Democrat. So we kind of flip-flop on both sides of the spectrum. It seems that both parties have some element of corruption. But definitely it seems that the conservative-ish thinker, those that want to retain those constitutional values, are being targeted. Once elected to office, what's the first thing that you will do to help preserve those constitutional freedoms for Americans?
The first thing I would like to do is get with other like-minded individuals to really sit down and come up with a plan. I believe that we have seen so many individuals try to stand up and do it, and it's great. They're doing great work. I'm not saying that, but I believe now is when we have to put aside I'm in Congress in Florida, I'm in Congress in Arizona. It's time for us to get together and say, what can we do to do it? Because when you go to Congress, even though you're representing your district and your state, your vote counts for the entire United States of America. And so I believe that it's time for us to get together with like-minded individuals, such as why we're here, in this conference, and preserve what belongs to the American people, which is our constitutional values. So that's what I first would do, is get with other like-minded individuals, see what we can do together.
Have you had a chance to work with Governor DeSantis? What are your thoughts on Ron DeSantis?
Oh, I think he's the best governor in our youth. But no, I haven't had a chance to work with him. I would love to. And so hopefully that'll come down the road here shortly.
Now, he said to me, I introduced him to this whistleblower, Zach Voorhees, and he said to me personally, this is back in November. He says we've got to dismantle Google. So on the tech front, we've got a lot of work to do as far as upholding, as you're saying, that First Amendment and that freedom of speech. I'm gonna pose a question to you. It's the same question that I posed to Senator Pete Sessions out of Texas, and the question that I'm going to pose to you is this: regardless of Democrat or Republican. And the reason I'm asking this question is because of the comment that you said about not revealing your party affiliation, what difference would it make? So regardless of Democrat or Republican, you've got kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum. And we look at the past 20 years of who's been in the White House, and we go from Bush for 8 years, and we go to Obama for 8 years, and the contrast between those two philosophies are stark. And then it's like we go even further to the other side with Trump. So he's even in so much that even George Bush didn't support Donald Trump, right? So here you've got a guy that's totally to the right, and the other side of things from Obama. And now we're kind of returning back to the Obama philosophies with Joe Biden. But here's the question, and it's a different spin. It's not a political, it's not a philosophical spin. It's regardless of, this is what I asked Senator Sessions out of Texas. I says, regardless of political affiliation, so whether it's Democrat or it's Republican, our federal debt continues to spiral out of control. Well, what are your comments on tackling the federal debt? Should Americans be concerned about that? Is that a threat to the way we live our life as Americans?
Yeah, because it's not only a threat to where we are currently, but as we hear all the time when we're speaking, and you hear other people running for office or that are currently elected, it's always mentioned that we have to look into the future. And I'm 33 years old. I work a lot with youth and young adults ages 7 and 25. And so when I look at them, and you look at the current debt that we see in America, and you look at the fact that we have those who are still without jobs, we have those that are still in conditions, as I always mention, we look at our national unemployment rate, and you see who is going to be responsible for getting us out of that place of debt. That would not be a story I would want to tell, my children and my grandchildren, that this is what we're handing them, and that everything that they're going to have to do after I'm of age is pretty much cover the debt. That we have a government that does not know how to be fiscally responsible. Instead, they know how to rack up debt because they want to, bail us out or stimulate, and really it's just full of, junk. And so, I believe that doesn't matter, as you mentioned, that on both sides there needs to be some type of tackling that issue and coming to a mutual agreement that we have a big debt problem, and we need to find out how we can make sure to get that taken care of before our next generation comes up. Because otherwise than that, we're just going to be continuing to go trillions of dollars in debt. That's just is yeah, we owe a lot of.
So we get a guy like Bill
We need
Gates.
to handle that real fast.
Say that again. Sorry. Say that again,
Say
Will.
it again. No, I couldn't. It broke out that part.
Oh, so we get a guy like Bill Gates. We've got what's being told to us a global pandemic. We've got something that has a 98% survival rate. Yet the mainstream media is pushing these masks on us and now pushing vaccines on us. We got a guy like Bill Gates who's a computer engineer, software engineer by trade. Yet he's inserted himself into the world health conversation. And now we're led to believe that he knows what's best for our anatomy and for our health, yet he's someone who's engineered a computer software. And just because the money talks, people are listening to him. Well, what do you say to Bill Gates saying that he wants the entire population on the planet vaccinated? What do you say to that, Willie?
No, but it's a pay to play type of thing that happens, especially with the administration that we see currently. And what I believe is taking place is that when you give people, as they say, you give an inch, they take a mile. Yeah. So he's been given that ability to have that type of voice. Once again, about the voice that I was talking about that we needed. He's been given that ability to have that voice, and so now he feels like he has to represent the whole entire world, and his viewpoints, goes from computer, like I said, engineering to now he's able to tell everyone that needs to be, vaccinated. And once again, it's the powers that be that has allowed him to be able to have that kind of foothold. And we have one thing about me is that as someone that I believe in being a fighter, and what I mean by that is that we have the ability to say no. If we decide, I'm not a mask. I really don't. You want to wear a mask, that's great. But I'm not my person. I believe in individual responsibility. So it's your individual right, your personal responsibility to determine what is right for your family, your face, your body, what's going on with your life. And you do not need outside sources of any kind to determine when and where you should be vaccinated, masked, how far apart you need to stand. And I feel like, it has gone too far. We're over a year with this COVID-19. Right. And, it was, going from 2 weeks to, 30 days to give it 3 months. And we'll be back to here over a year. Now, what we're seeing is, wear 2 masks, wear 3 masks, do this, say that, don't do. Now, stand 3 feet, only be 6 feet. And so what it's becoming is like none of those people that have all this power and money actually knows what they're doing. Instead, they're using us as puppets and experiments. And then we're here like, what do we do next? And everybody's like down everybody's throat because they want you to wear a mask because, they're wearing a mask, or they want you to sit behind them or don't stand close to them. And so Bill Gates is one of those individuals that have been given too much power. And I believe that, if they stop giving him the power, then he'll go silent.
Yeah. So then you got a guy like Klaus Schwab, right? I mean, there's a lot of dynamics going on that are very unsettling in America today. We've got the whole racial thing going, where people, like you're saying, Maxine Waters and LeBron James. If you're standing back, you're saying, hey, right. I mean, their voices make a lot of sense because we're all kind of, we're talking about racial justice. But then we got a guy like George Soros that we're finding is actually throwing money at these grassroots organizations like BLM. And is he doing it purposefully to incite this type of disturbance in America, weakening things like we're talking about, the family structure, these communities, making them more susceptible for this type of infiltration? I mean, talk about like Portland, Oregon, and Ted Wheeler and this mayor and even de Blasio, and they're not standing up for the history and the things that have made the country great. We're going to take that, but then we also look at Klaus Schwab, because both of those men tie right into the World Economic Forum in Davos, and Klaus Schwab saying, hey, this is an opportune time for something like the Great Reset, which means digitizing the monetary currencies globally. So what do you see happening on a global scale? How does it tie into this coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, in your view?
Well, globally, what I see is, this global pandemic that's spread. What I believe is taking place is, again, as you mentioned about, I've heard people say about this reset. I've heard people, as you mentioned, about what's going on with George Soros and funding BLM, which you see that you're not just seeing that in America. I've seen that, across, the globe with this. So what I believe is taking place is that it is to, once again, as they say, history repeats itself. I believe that these are people who have the money to be able to cause divide. And I firmly believe that some individuals really think that they are helping with the process of selection of let the strongest one survive. That who can survive this, who can make it past this, and that's what I think they're playing. Again, they're playing with people's lives because they have the money and the backing to do so. And then, of course, if you can again pay individuals to go and incite violence, then that's what they're going to do. You can go and get them to talk about race and spread that. That's what they're going to do. If you can get them to go and continue on and carry on this whole thing about the global pandemic, that's what they're going to do. And I believe that these are individuals who are really not, they're not for people, they're for themselves and whatever corporations that they represent.
Dr. Montague, do you feel that the 2020 election was rigged, or do you think that the numbers that were fed, that Biden got 80 million votes and Trump got 75, do you think those are accurate? What do you think about the election in 2020 that we just experienced?
Oh, absolutely not. I don't believe that. Biden couldn't even get 10 people to show up at a rally. I don't believe that he had 80 million votes. What I believe that there was definitely some election irregularities that took place, and I believe that we need to go back and start looking at our election and have voter integrity. We need to make sure election integrity and make sure we look at how we've been doing it. And I don't believe this is the first time stuff like this has happened. Of course not. I believe that this was a great exposure, and I believe through this election dealing with President Trump that we was able to see what really has gone on probably for some years now. And so I believe that, it definitely was some things that took place, and I do believe that there's some investigations still taking place. We're seeing that all across the United States, with other states that are finally stepping up and looking at things, investigating, as we see that what they're doing, I believe, in Arizona. And so we just have to start, looking and paying attention. What I personally say about that is that we need to start looking at how we can hold each our local supervisor of elections accountable for what they do when it comes down to poll watchers. Become your team go in and be able to watch the process. So I believe we need to look at the process again. I believe we need to look at how we've been doing. We have enough time. We have enough time between now and 2022 to really get some things fixed. Florida wasn't as bad, but there are other states, of course, that are bad that we need to have fixed before the next presidential election. Well, actually, before the next midterm, which is in 2022. So we don't have much time.
So we've got now a hot topic from DeSantis. Again, we're kind of coming back to Florida. DeSantis saying he's opposed to vaccine passports, but what seems to be an interesting thing here is that people are willing to put on a face mask to enter a Publix or a supermarket, even though it's not a law, it's simply a mandate, and they're willing to put on a face mask. And what we're seeing now, since Biden administration has moved into D.C., is that people are even willing to be vaccinated. And you've got one of the most conservative, if you will, leaders in the country heading the state of Florida, in Ron DeSantis, saying, "Wait, no, I'm opposed to vaccine passports." What do you say, Willie? What do you say to vaccinations? And what do you say in regards to vaccine passports in order to travel? What's your thought on those and opinions on that?
Yeah, so when it comes down to the vaccinations, I personally am not going to get vaccinated. I'm going back again to the individual responsibility. I am for medical freedom. So I believe, again, it is your choice. It is your responsibility for your body and for your family and for your children, for that matter, when it comes down to vaccinations. When I say about the vaccine passports, I'm absolutely agree with Governor DeSantis that we do not need those to travel. See, listen, if we're going to go to if I'm going to travel to Arizona, I shouldn't have to have something that determines whether or not, based off of these CDC regulations, whether or not I can get on a plane because I've had a shot of something that I do not agree with should go into my body. And this is what we're coming to. In the United States, where we're forcing, what I don't like is that they're using Like I saw a video here in Orange County where the mayor had like young adults get up there to kind to appease college age of getting the vaccination. And that's the stuff that we're seeing. We're seeing, movie stars and political figures get up there to make it like this is just do it. And again, it's the power. We learned this in school about peer pressure. And so that's all it is. It's like, yeah, they're getting it. I'm hearing pastors that are using the pulpit to have them get up and say, yeah, everyone in here needs to go get a vaccine. We got to go do this. And I believe that, we're really losing it. We're losing the power to be able to stand and have some kind of backbone and spine to be able to say no, because, as you said, you mentioned about the recovery rate. We look at the statistics. We look at all these different numbers out there. The stuff, the math and everything just doesn't line up. And so we need them to go back to the drawing board and stop trying to force it down us to, be able to travel here and there with a passport, or travel there with a vaccine card, or going there and I'm going to, pretty soon that's what it's going to be. Where I'm going to have a stamp before I get on a plane. And I think that's just very uncomfortable to make someone go through as an individual that should be able to make my own decisions about my own body. So I agree with Governor DeSantis 100%.
Let's take something called ID 2020, and that is funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, and it's also funded by the Gates Foundation. ID 2020 is essentially in line, theoretically, with something called a quantum tattoo. So it's putting a identification mark on either inside someone's wrist via a capsule, or it's putting a digitized tattoo. And with that, people can make payments. They can log all their health information on that. Is it possible that Bill Gates, a computer engineer whose family is tied to eugenics, you were talking about survival of the fittest, is it possible that Bill Gates is simply interested in global health because he is perhaps profiting on the back end of things? What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned before, anyone like himself, and as you mentioned, George Soros, anytime you can be able to herd people into the direction you want them to go, you can guarantee there's some kind of profitability behind closed doors. And so, I definitely do believe, especially, I'm not getting any type of a barcode on my arm or any injection. It has to come to a point where we just have to just say no. And so, I'm already at that point. I didn't even do some of the updates for my iPhone because they want you to be able to have whatever the medical thing in there to be able to determine whether there is some, person that's COVID-19 exposure around you, and whether you were tested so people around you can determine, we're not going to do, that's almost the same type of system that they use when they determine whether or not there is a sex offender in your neighborhood. Have we gotten to that place where that is what we're trying to, spark in the hearts of people? It's like, hey, down the street, there's someone with COVID-19. That's no. It has to come to a point where we have to say no.
This is amazing. A wonderful, Dr. Montague, I appreciate you taking your time and joining Discussion of Truth. I want to get some closing comments from you for listeners, and it really has to do with the best foot forward. Again, once you get to Congress, we'll be relying on you to uphold our standards, uphold our Constitution, uphold our conservative thoughts. And again, I try not to take sides politically, but certainly I'm not going to stand by and allow our cities to burn and mandatory vaccinations to come down and then our guns to be taken away. So there's certain things that I stand up for. It doesn't mean that I'm not an American patriot, because I certainly am. What I do remind listeners is that neither one of these political parties existed in 1776. So it's more about American constitutional values for me than anything else. But some closing comments from you, Dr. Montague. How do we move forward best? Where can people find you? And just some overall words from you, sir.
Yeah, sure. So what I believe we do moving forward is we have to begin to start uniting. As I mentioned before, there are other individuals who are out there, whether they're running for office as myself or they're just simply tired and they're ready for a change. And I believe that anyone who is listening needs to start getting into your neighborhoods and start finding those neighbors, those teachers, the pastors that have this same mindset, and start having these town hall meetings and start finding a way that you can get in your community, getting this information into your community. Start building up your community. Let's get back to the foundational principles, and let's start teaching our children the way to do things. Start teaching our young men how to tie ties and put on belts. Let's start teaching. I always say teaching the young women how to adorn themselves. Let's start learning about gardening skills and getting back to some of the things that taught life skills and principles. And that's the first thing that I would say on that area. When it comes with me, you can personally go to teamwillie.com. That's teamwillie.com. You can go and see some of the things that I stand on, my contact information, my social media platforms are there that you can go and take a look out and see. We're fighting a good fight in Florida. As I said, I go to different states and different counties within Florida to just share the message, of freedom and hope, that people realize that, this is not the end for us. And if there's other people that have that same heart that I'm sharing about being a fighter and really standing on constitutional principles, we can do this. This is going to be a change for America. And it's going to, at the end of the day, as you mentioned about different parties did not exist during that time in 1776. So we have to get back to whether you love freedom or not. That's really what it comes to. Are you truly for America, or are you not? And that's really what it's going to boil to. It's good versus evil. And we can put party aside, but are you really going to stand on the right side of history? And that's where I want to be, on the side of history where we're going to stand up and be the patriots that we have been born to be, and not fall to the system of tyranny.
Well said, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Willie J Montague, running for Florida Congressional seat. Dr. Montague, thank you for taking your time to join us on Discuss the Truth, and I look forward to inviting you back on the program, sir.
Thank you, and have a great one.
So there we have Dr. Montague, and again, folks, it's not about a left versus right. It's not about liberalism versus conservatism. This is about the United States Constitution. This is about the core values of freedom of speech, of freedom of religion, of freedom of press. All of those things are being infringed upon and being destroyed and taken from us as we speak, and in the name of a global pandemic on so many different levels. With a 98% survival rate, there is no reason for anyone to be walking into their local grocery store wearing a mask. And certainly there is no reason for a mandation of vaccination that has not been approved by the FDA and is simply nothing more than a preventative angle, whereas you don't even know what's inside the vaccination. So you're talking about your own personal vessel, your own personal being, your own personal anatomy. It's like consuming food. It's like being forced fed something. I was exposed to this in Miami Beach in 2016, where I was force-fed, if you will, a neurotoxin called Naled. I had no choice. I had to breathe this stuff. I had a choice to leave town. Sure, I did. But a pregnant woman, a child inside of a fetus, does not have a choice. The child, where the mother breathes in the neurotoxin, it enters her blood-brain barrier, but it also enters the bloodstream, breaking her child's blood-brain barrier, and that infant has no choice. That infant is therefore being born perhaps with a deformed brain, otherwise known as a microcephaly. And so, folks, if you're listening to this and this resides to you, and if it makes sense to you, resonates with you, please do share it and get your own personal voice out there, because now is the time. Now is the time to speak up for what you feel is right, for your own freedoms, and there's no other way to change this except for your voice. I am Ian Trottier for Discuss Your Truth. I thank Dr. Montague for joining me, and you can find more about what I do at iantrottier.com, INTROTTIER.com. And until next time, folks, be awesome.